Haha, you've just been pranked. You thought this was a video about the history of pranks? This is actually cat compilation number 16,798. Ha, you've just been pranked again. This is a video about the history of pranks, albeit very brief. Pranks, practical jokes, tricks, whatever you'd like to call it, has been a topic that reminds me of the stunts that me and my friends would pull when we were younger. But nowadays, I just think of it as mindless video content along the same lines as 3 AM challenges and other similar videos, where when you preview the video, you just see the most brain-stimulating edits, desperately trying to keep your attention for that precious viewer retention rate. This led me to start wondering, how were pranks back during the time without the internet or modern technology? Were their pranks as bad as the ones we see nowadays? Why do people even play pranks in the first place? To which, upon research, all I could find was the history of April Fools, which is fine, I guess, but I want to go one step further, and this led me on a bigger rabbit hole than I was ever expecting. So join me in my journey to try to talk about pranks that I find either interesting or entertaining in a somewhat historical way. To truly understand pranks, we have to go back to the beginning of pranks. Which, sorry, I couldn't find any pranks that Neanderthals did. Otherwise, if you count the use of revolutionary hunting tools like spears on other species as a prank. So we'll have to go back to ancient civilizations in the BCE times to investigate further. Krishna is a major deity in Hinduism and can be traced back to the first millennium through literature and cults, describing Krishna as a child god, a model lover, a divine hero, the universal supreme being, and most importantly, a prankster. From all these descriptions, you expect his pranks to be otherworldly and inconceivable by humans. But nope, his big earth-shattering pranks were stealing butter. Yeah, this universal supreme being who can perform miracles and is one of the most popular and revered gods steals butter. Damn, that butter must have been really fucking good then if anybody wanted to steal it, let alone a deity. To pull off these heists, Krishna and his friends would remove tiles off people's homes and slip in. Once inside, the kids would look for butter pots and consume all of its contents. Sometimes, the pots would be hung up so high, they would either climb on each other like those two kids trying to sneak into a movie theater, or they'll just chuck rocks at the fucking thing until it turned into one of those water bottles the hamsters use. Now imagine suddenly waking up to a loud crash sounding like it's from the kitchen, so you go to investigate, and you can't use a light switch, well, because it wouldn't be invented for like another couple thousand years, so you're stuck using a candle, and you suddenly see this figure of 6 arms moving around and going after your delectable butter. And when you try to do something about it, it just throws a fucking rock at you and scrams away, forever scarring you and leaving you wondering about the possibility of human-sized caterpillars. Krishna did this so much, he actually earned a name for it, Makanchor, or butter thief. There's even a gigantic bouncing rock called Krishna's butterball, and according to Hindu scriptures, the name might come from Krishna often stealing from his own mother's butter handi. His butter addiction truly shows no bounds. It is said to have been in the same place for around 1,200 years, and while viewed at certain angles, it seems like the rock has been cut, probably by a huge butter knife. You know what's also on the same table as a butter knife? A cup. The Pythagorean cup, also known as the greedy cup, just looks like any ordinary or run-of-the-mill cup, but get this, if you fill it up with too much liquid, it pours out the bottom. Pranked. If this all sounds like too much to you, just know that the creator died when a huge group of people attacked him while at his buddy's house, talking about whatever the hell Pythagoreans talked about in the 570s. And oh yeah, the building was set on fire afterwards. Moving on, King Yo of Zhou was the 12th king of the Chinese Zhou dynasty, and this king wanted to make somebody laugh. Who? His wife, of course. Queen Baosi was said to not laugh easily. Zhou. After several failed attempts, the king tried to amuse his wife by playing a prank by lighting warning beacons which tricked his nobles into believing that a huge attack was about to happen. When the nobles arrived at the castle, all they were greeted with was a laughing king and queen. But this wasn't enough for the king because he still wanted to make his wife laugh even more, so he repeated the cycle of lighting the warning beacons and watching his nobles slowly growing more and more unamused. The king did this so much that the nobles lost trust of the beacons and stopped responding to them. This was all fine until one day they got actually attacked, and naturally in response the king called for his nobles using the warning beacons, and to his surprise none of them showed up, and let's just say bad things happened to the king and queen. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Wait, actually this completely reminds me of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. One day somebody wants to amuse themselves, says there's a huge threat, everybody comes over and finds they've been duped, cycle repeats, and when there's an actual threat, nobody comes over. Which, you know what happens after that. It's kind of funny how The Boy Who Cried Wolf came out after this event. Listen, I'm not saying that Aesop got inspired by this because of all the limitations of hearing the story back in those times, but maybe. Most likely not, but come on, that would be pretty cool. Hey, have you ever wondered where the whoopee cushion comes from? Well, its origins come from this guy, Elagabalus, all the way back in 218 CE. He was a young Roman emperor and enjoyed pranking people at his dinner parties by placing whoopee cushions for unsuspecting victims. Yeah, whoopee cushions are pretty funny, but you want to know what else this probably way too powerful kid did? He would get his guests so drunk that they would have to stay the night, and as a little goof, he would bring live man-eating animals into their room. How silly, ha ha ha. Lions, leopards, bears, serpents. Listen, this kid had the whole fucking zoo at his disposal. I know he would have loved playing Zoo Tycoon and releasing wild animals for the guests to get up close and personal. But what the inebriated guests didn't realize after thinking that these were their final moments on Earth is that the animals were tame. See, it's all fine. It's just an innocent little prank. Nothing traumatizing about watching your life flash before your eyes. Calm down. If I was one of his guests, I would be wondering how much farther he's gonna take these pranks, like whoopee cushion to possibly being mauled to death by animals. What's next? Waking up in an ancient Roman torture machine in a public area and have elegant balls Elagabalus walk up to you and saying, "Don't worry, bro, it's just a prank. Look, there's a camera, guy drawing a sketch over there." Apparently, other people weren't too happy about this for some reason, so when he was 18, he was assassinated. Why is it always the people who make weird prank devices die so brutally? Well, I do mean the kid did kinda have it coming to him. You can only go so long fucking with other people before someone has had enough of your shit and decides to put a knife in your back. Regardless of his death, his impact on the world is undeniable because in the 1930s, the modern rubber version you're most likely familiar with was made in the great old land of Canada by Samuel Sorensen Adams. He also created the hand buzzer, which is as much of a prank as it is a good way for somebody to get really pissed off at you. Funnily enough, its original patent name was the Joy Buzzer. Yeah, absolutely zero joy was had from the recipient of this electrical attack. Wait, that's actually a misconception. The hand buzzer falsely advertised it delivering an electrical shock when it only causes a vibration simulating a shock. Still hurts like hell though. But now let's talk about a prank so unbelievably bad that it tore a family apart and caused a 2-year war. William the Conqueror's or William the Bastard's, whichever one you prefer, was the first Norman king of English and was a part of the House of Normandy royal dynasty. So yeah, this guy was pretty important. I know it's really typical to make fun of bad graphic design for things like state flags, but now this is fucking awesome. Around halfway through William's reign in 1077, a bit of drama started between his eldest son Robert and his 2 younger brothers, William and Henry. Their bickering went on for so long that one day William and Henry decided to pull a prank on Robert. When Robert was playing dice with his friends, William and Henry went up to the floor above, overlooking the about-to-be-fooled diceman. Hoisting a pot full of water, the 2 of them proceeded to make a short-lived waterfall over the heads of the group. This act was not appreciated by the now furious Robert, being egged on by his friends, who I quote said, "Why do you put up with this insult? See, your brothers have mounted above you and shower their filth upon you and us in contempt. Do not you perceive what they mean? If you do not instantly resent this insult, you are a lost man and can never lift your head again. again. The enraged Robert ran into his room where his brothers were and went ballistic. All of this commotion caused their dad to intervene with his royal authority, temporarily putting an end to his son's contention. This silence only lasted until the following night because Robert wasn't playing around. He took it so personally that he decided to seize a fucking castle. Holy shit. Talk about an overreaction, Robert. Go play with your dice or whatever a mid-20s guy did during 1077 England. Unfortunately for Robert, his master plan was stopped by the butler of all people, who overheard Robert's psychotic ramblings. Once their dad heard this, he placed an arrest on Robert, which caused a cycle of Robert fleeing to somewhere, his dad attacking that place, and Robert fleeing again to another place. This all started to escalate when, after plundering a county, the father allied with Philip I of France to stop Robert's petty rebellions. To add to the family's relationships going south, this is also when he found out Robert's mother was secretly sending her son money. Eventually, he finally caught up to Robert, and in January of 1079, during a battle between Robert and his father, Robert successfully unhorsed and wounded him, finally stopping when he recognized his father's voice. You would expect this to play out like a movie scene where they see each other and be like, "This has gone too far," and call off everything and everyone rejoices and starts dancing, but instead, Robert was humiliated and his dad cursed him. "Dad, oh my god, I'm so sorry." During Easter of 1080, Robert and his father finally reunited thanks to Robert's mom, to where they made a truce. Up until she died in 1083, then shit went back to normal. And in 1087, on the father's deathbed, his final wish was to disinherit Robert, but was convinced otherwise to just divide the Norman dominions between his two oldest sons, and Henry, he just got money to buy land. After this, the two older brothers decided to have peace, making an agreement to be each other's heirs, which lasted for less than a year when Robert got some barons together to displace William in the rebellion of 1088, which of course failed because Robert actually never showed up to support his own rebels, probably too busy playing with dice or something. So time passed. In 1096, Robert left Normandy and joined in to aid the Byzantine Empire in the First Crusade, and 4 years later, William died. Maybe this was the chance for Robert to become king. Nope, Henry got that. This caused Robert to lead an invasion on Henry, and of course, Henry won. But this wouldn't stop Robert, because in 1105, Robert missed a very important sermon because he got way too drunk. Okay, maybe that did stop Robert, but later on that year, Henry decided to attack Normandy, but then called it off due to political issues, but then came back in the spring of 1106. Robert, seeing an opportunity to have some vengeance, maybe this was his chance. If he could just... Nah, it wasn't even close. Henry's army completely destroyed Robert's. Robert was then captured and imprisoned for the rest of his life up until his death in 1134. Wow, talk about a black sheep in the family. To think that this all started from somebody throwing water at somebody else really makes you think. Not really. Moving on. Let's talk about the Florence Cathedral. Located in Italy, has gone on to be known as one of the most famous buildings from the region. And I think most people would agree with me in saying that the dome part of the building is way cooler than the tower part. Now, I know next to nothing about architecture, but I think a child could build this. Look, I can even build it in Minecraft, it's so easy. But now a dome? Now that's more complex. Oh wait, the tower isn't a part of the building and I was looking at a very specific angle where it kinda looks like it connects. Still looks easy to build. And the absolute genius that was behind this was Filippo Brunelleschi, renowned as a founding father of Renaissance architecture. He's known for a lot of things, but the dome was his most famous piece. But who cares about all that shit? Let's talk about a book from 1409. The Fat Woodworker is a humorous tale starring the two main characters, a woodworker called Manetto, to which I assume he was a rather rotund man, and Filippo Brunelleschi, the artist and artisan seasonal workers in Florence often eat dinner together until one night everyone notices someone is missing. It's Manetto, and the group are insulted by this and decide to play a prank on him. Filippo comes up with the idea of pretending that he has become someone else. He convinces the rest of the group due to Manetto having a simple mind. Filippo was surprisingly correct and somehow, some way made Manito believe that he turned into another person. Hey, Manito, I need some wood carved or something. Do I recognize you from anywhere? No. These types of childish pranks ensued until one day Manetto went to go live in Hungary and start a vacation back to Florence every once in a while. This change of location made him gain a deeper sense of oneself, and Filippo eventually revealed himself as the mastermind behind the prank. Manetto doesn't get upset and is instead happy about the situation, and everyone lived happily ever after. Well, that was a nice story that actually didn't end completely awfully. Too bad it's not real. Potentially. I couldn't find anywhere that says it was based on a real story. It was released when Filippo was alive, so maybe. Only if we could ask him. Wait, that gives me an idea. Hey, did you know that spiritualism or communication with the dead was largely created as a prank by two sisters? The Fox sisters were from Rochester, New York, and one day the two youngest ones, Kate and Maggie, decide to trick their family into believing that the two were communicating with spirits. The house that the family was living in already had some reputation for being haunted, but it was not until late March when every night the parents began to hear some pretty terrifying sounds, like knocking or furniture moving. On the night of March 31st, the mother was fed up with the situation and forced the two to lie still and ignore any sounds, and to her surprise, the sounds still continued. Now, this was getting serious, so the neighbors were called over to witness the events, and over the next couple of days, a code was developed to where they could denote yes and no answers and the entire alphabet. The sounds turned out to be coming from a spirit called Mr. Splitfoot. It's apparently a nickname for the devil, but it sounds more like an evil teacher character in children's books or movies. The girls claimed that Mr. Splitfoot was of a late Charles B. Rosna, who was murdered 5 years earlier and buried in the cellar. And despite Charles B. Rosna having no missing persons report, the neighbors are still convinced that somebody was murdered inside the house, and after some research on finding out who previously lived there, decided to blame an innocent old man instead, who was then shunned by the community with absolutely zero reasoning. And like any good mother in this situation, she deserted the house and sent her children off to go live in separate homes. But this wouldn't stop the spirits from following Kate and Maggie, because the both of them and their older sister Leah would get invited to the house of Amy and Isaac Post to see their rappings. Oh yeah, this is probably a good time to mention that the girls called the sounds that the spirit was making raps or rappings for whatever reason, but I just like to imagine that there was a ghost fucking spitting bars in 1844. Afterwards, the three were introduced to the Post circle of friends, and this group would become an early core of spiritualism. The Post helped the sisters set up events so even more people could witness them, and a couple years later, the sisters' popularity skyrocketed, reforming their spiritualist rappings and seances all over New York, and Leah eventually started to manage their careers as mediums. They all enjoyed their time under the spooky sun, but unfortunately, this wouldn't last forever. In 1888, after Kate and Maggie got in a bad argument with Leah, the two decided to travel up to New York City to expose the truth. They met a reporter who offered $1,500, which nowadays is like around $50,000, goddamn, for an exclusive on the story and in front of an audience of over 2,000 people. The two happily agreed and began to set their death blow to spiritualism, and as they walked onto the stage, everybody went quiet, waiting eagerly to know what was truly happening, and all they heard was this. Yeah, they could just crack their toe joints really well. Pretty disappointing for probably everyone. At least they had the balls to say it was fake, even if it was out of spite of their own sister. There are most likely tens of thousands of mediums or those people who do ghost hunting shows who know damn well it's all bullshit but never say anything, both openly and happily scamming their own viewers. But this absolutely ruined their reputation, and despite basically the original creator saying that it was all a sham, spiritualism still continued to grow, maybe because of the several hundreds of new mediums showing up in the scene to take their place. And spiritualism is still going on to this day, mostly living through the before mentioned ghost shows and now clickbait YouTube and TikTok videos. Moving on, but slightly more spooky. Ooh! It almost took 30 minutes, but now let's talk about one of the main things you think about when you hear pranks. April Fools. Surprisingly, despite being one of the most popular holidays just ever, its origins are disputed with many theories. My favorite theory was actually the earliest one, being from Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, which was released in 1392 and contains a collection of 24 stories. But the dispute comes from the story of the Nun's Priest's Tale, where a mighty rooster called Chanticleer is tricked by a fox, specifically on "Since March began 30 days and 2, which is a needlessly complicated way to say April 1st, but that isn't clear if he's actually referencing that, because the story also states that it takes place on the day when the sun is in the sign of Taurus had Y rune 20 degrees and 1, which is an even more needlessly complicated way to say it doesn't take place on April 1st. And that's still not even correct, because modern scholars believe that there was a copying error and Chaucer actually said "Sin March was gone," which is not a needlessly complicated but still old way to say 32 days after March, which is May 2nd, and it's instead a reference to the anniversary of the engagement of King Richard II and Anne of Bohemia. Regardless of the origins of April Fools, it has had a long-lasting impact on society, with almost every single culture participating in the tradition in some way. Like how in Japan, the creators of Dragon Ball Super joked about the new season being called Social Survival Edition, where all the characters get corporate jobs in times of an economic recession. In Iran, they celebrate by picnicking outside and just chilling. This isn't really much of a prank, it's just pretty cool. United Kingdom's now infamous spaghetti tree hoax, where they showed a family in southern Switzerland growing and harvesting spaghetti out of a tree, which confused a lot of people when it first aired. And that one time in Alaska where someone thought it would be really funny to make it look like a volcano erupted by dropping 70 fuel-soaked tires out of a helicopter. No, I'm not joking.
Hang up that phone! You think your little pranks are funny, huh? You think they're funny? Well, what do you guys think of my prank? Ring, ring.
The first one happened about 8 years after the telephone was invented and was surprisingly pretty morbid. Imagine if you were an undertaker in your office. No, not that one. An undertaker like a mortician, and you hear a phone call. So you go to answer and someone exclaims that a relative of theirs just died and to bring freezers, candlesticks, and coffins. So you get on your wagon and start going as fast as your horse dressed in some weird clothing that all the photos I found of undertakers' horses had on can go. And when you finally arrive, you rush towards the door, knocking frantically, and when it opens, you see the man who was said to be dead, clearly still alive, laughing at you for falling for his prank. So now whenever April 1st rolls around, hundreds of people would either call only morgues or zoos for some reason. They would call looking for people like Mr. Graves, Mr. Donkey, Mrs. Fox, Miss Fish. The most extreme case of this I could find was when the Bronx Zoo back in 1959 intercepted well over 5,000 prank calls so they can actually have a normal work day. And as much to my dismay, I couldn't find an origin to the infamous "your refrigerator's running" prank call. But I did find the first prank or hidden camera show. It started in 1948 and called Candid Camera. And to be candid with you, this show's actually pretty cool. It's basically they set up awkward and inconvenient social situations, like having tables at a restaurant being way too close to each other, or having a donut shop only sell one donut. And after messing with the victim for a bit, they just say,
"So I want you to look over there and smile for me because you're on candid camera." Look right over there and smile.
There they are, whoa.
The show's wrapped in a layer of wholesomeness. Even with its more potential serious situations, everything turns out fine and the episode ends with everyone laughing. It's just some good old innocent fun, unlike compared to this next show.
Okay, here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna do something, a celebrity's gonna get pissed, and then we're gonna laugh at them.
Tonight on Punk'd, NBA star Shaquille O'Neal gets welcomed back to Los
Yeah, just by looking at this one image alone, you can tell it's going to be annoying. And annoying it is because, no joke, the original name for the show that the creator and MTV had in mind was harassment. Harassment! You can't possibly be any more blatant with what your show's about than with a title like that. And in 2002, they decided to do a dead body prank. Wow, what a good idea. This backfired so badly, they got sued for $10 million. So they rebooted the show to focus on celebrities instead. Most celebrities are probably dead inside anyways, so this isn't a big difference. And the first prank they did was on Justin Timberlake, where they made him believe his house and valuables were going to be seized by government agents because of unpaid income taxes. Cool prank, I guess? Okay. Another totally epic prank was when they went to go interview celebrities at the red carpet, but they didn't actually interview them. They just mocked and made fun of them. And also, the show's still running somehow with Chance the Rapper as the host. A little random, but whatever, I guess. It's pretty easy to tell that most hidden camera shows suck. They're irritating and usually fake a majority of their pranks. Wait, that reminds me of something. Oh boy, where do I even begin? Well, I know where to begin. The start of YouTube, basically. The first viral video I was able to find seems to be a re-upload of a clip from a hidden camera show all the way back in February of 2006, almost a full year after YouTube was created. The video depicts a man inside of a mailbox spitting back out people's letters whenever they're put in. The video ends with now a frustrated man. Oh damn bro, it was just a prank, calm down, holy shit. What truly gets me is the ominous, "We know you don't like surprises." Yeah, like this guy doesn't like surprises so much, he will resort to murder to not experience them. Coincidentally, this video also contains the now infamous "Gone Wrong" tag in the title, which stayed as a common trope among prank videos. And afterwards, pranks never went unviral again. Some guy making a video where he prank calls people for 5 minutes, 12 million views. Best of train horn pranks, 19 million views. But that all changed when the clickbait nation attacked. In 2011 to 2013, a noticeably huge spike of just sickening amounts of videos about pranking for internet clout started appearing. FouseyTube, Roman Atwood, Sofalo Antonio, Sam Pepper, Prank Invasion, Jesse, Magic of Rahat, Vitaly ZD TV, you get the point. All of these channels usually had pranks ranging from, okay, this is fairly innocent, to what the fuck are you doing? Can you please stop being a public nuisance? To literal fucking crimes. Like what? What is this? These channels ran the course of one day getting millions upon millions of views until they were canceled when people finally had enough of their shit and stopped watching them. Or they just slowly fiddled out and stopped uploading entirely, or never garnered the same level of success, but this didn't stop the prank train. More and more prank channels took their place, and with the eventual creation of TikTok, even more pranks are being created and shared across the internet to newer and newer heights. To which I'll say 100% of it is complete and utter shit. It's just those prank YouTube videos, but way shorter and somehow still stupidly popular, and it's most likely gonna stay that way otherwise if TikTok gets banned, but then probably a similar platform will be created, so the cycle will repeat itself until everyone's minds rot out due to too much overstimulation. That seems to be all I've written for the script. How do I end this video? Oh, I know. My main goal of this project was to see if pranks back before modern technology and the internet were just as bad as they are nowadays. And as maybe a surprise to some people, this was an astounding yes. Pranks have always been this bad and potentially worse? Hell, that Ella Gabulus story was enough to convince me. I wonder how those same people would react if instead of being covered in a small section of the newspaper would instead be getting thousands of views on TikTok or YouTube. Why do humans prank or trick other members of the same species? Why would humans evolve to gain this feeling of mischief? It certainly wouldn't have helped when fighting a mammoth or collecting berries. I stumbled across this Reddit thread talking about if animals had a sense of humor, and looking through some of the animals that different people provided, monkeys, dolphins, cats, dogs, ravens, rats, and skunks, I noticed that all of these species have a high intelligence, and yeah, the literal fart joke of a species is actually intelligent. There's probably a moral to that somewhere. Now, this is just a theory, but maybe only species that are capable of participating in pranks, jokes, or other forms of humor are ones with a higher level of intelligence. Maybe it's a form of bonding between tribe members, and this connection through joking around with each other led humans into becoming the #1 species on this little rock in space. But what if only one party expresses joy and the other feels upset at being pranked? What would be the benefit of evolving that trait? It could be a form of dominance over others, like a weird way to see who's the top dog of the pack, like some natural selection type stuff. This is just a theory though, and regardless of it, pranks aren't going anywhere in the timeline of the human species. Who knows, maybe in the future they'll have some even crazier forms of pranks. That's if humans don't go extinct before then. You never know.